Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today we are looking at the hidden architecture that basically shapes everything, from our everyday decisions to complex computer algorithms and even our legal systems. It all really boils down to one absolutely crucial choice of timing. Do we execute things sequentially or simultaneously? Here's our roadmap for this Explainer. We'll quickly define the core dichotomy, then unpack the great trade-off between speed and resources. After that, we'll hit some high-stakes real-world battlegrounds, look at the biases, and finish up with some solid guidelines for choosing your approach.
All right, Section 1, the core dichotomy defined. Let's get our terms straight.
First up, sequential execution. Sometimes you'll hear this called serial execution. Basically, it's a strict one-after-another dependency chain. Think of it like a massive factory assembly line, right? Step B relies entirely on step A actually finishing. It's super methodical, heavily controlled, and the beauty of it is that it allows for retroactive adjustments along the way. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how rigid that chain is. To even get to task C, you've got to clear tasks A and B first. There's no skipping ahead. If task A hits a snag and errors out, boom, the entire system is just completely paralyzed. So while this rigid structure absolutely guarantees order, it places a hard, undeniable limit on your overall speed. Now, contrast that with simultaneous execution. This is where tasks just fire all at once, concurrently. The defining trait here is what we call informational blindness. Basically, no single process has any prior knowledge of what the others are doing. It's literally like throwing down cards in a high-stakes blind auction. It's independent, it's instantaneous, and man, is it radically fast. Moving into Section 2, the great trade-off. It's the classic battle of speed versus resources. You see, it's basically a zero-sum game here. Sequential processing is incredibly thrifty. Doing just one task at a time means minimal resource strain, which is great, but it bleeds time. Simultaneous execution is the exact inverse. It buys you massive speed, but the tax you pay is this enormous, immediate drain on your resources. We're talking computer memory, your budget, or even just your own cognitive bandwidth. Let's look at how this plays out on a timeline. By overlapping concurrent tasks, simultaneous execution radically compresses a project's overall make span. Tasks A and B finish in the exact same time it takes to do just one step sequentially. You literally buy back hours. But, and this is a big but, that's only provided your infrastructure can actually handle that heavy dual load. Section 3, high-stakes real-world battlegrounds. Let's take this out of the abstract. In game theory and economics, timing absolutely dictates the victor. Imagine two firms acting simultaneously. That's called a Cournot duopoly. They're operating entirely blindly. But what if we shift that to a sequential setup, a Stackelberg duopoly? Suddenly, the firm that moves first gets to lock in their market share, forcing the follower to just scavenge for whatever's left. By simply altering the timing, you restructure the entire profit landscape. Crazy, right? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this exact same concept plays out with the literal life-or-death stakes in the criminal justice system. For decades, police just relied on simultaneous photo lineups, showing all the faces at once. But look at this data. The contrast is stark. Sequential, one-by-one lineups yield a 69.1% correct identification rate of the actual suspect, while the simultaneous method drops down to 58.4%. So why the huge gap? Well, simultaneous options trigger what psychologists call relative judgment. Witnesses tend to pick the face that looks the most like the suspect compared to the others in the lineup, which totally spikes the rate of false IDs. But sequential lineups, they force an absolute judgment for every single face. It acts as a crucial cognitive safeguard. You should really keep this in mind the next time you're reviewing a grid of options for anything. Simultaneous presentation naturally invites some pretty dangerous comparisons. We also see this in clinical drug trials. A fixed, simultaneous design gathers all the data and waits until the very end to analyze it. But a group sequential design, it actually lets researchers peek at the data iteratively. If a new drug is overwhelmingly proven to work right out of the gate, they can stop the trial early. This kind of sequential adaptability can actually slash the number of required human subjects by up to 30%. To put that into perspective, that is millions of dollars and countless lives saved, all just by changing the operational timeline. And guess what? We face the exact same divide in machine learning and AI. Batch learning is basically a simultaneous feast. The AI ingests a massive fixed data set all at once. It's highly efficient for large data, sure, but it's pretty inflexible. Online learning, on the other hand, is sequential. It updates iteratively on each new data point as live data flows in. So if you want an AI model to adapt quickly and predict livestock fluctuations, you need that sequential adaptability. But if you're just analyzing, say, 10 years of static weather data, simultaneous batch learning is for sure your workhorse. All right, moving on to Section 4, biases and pitfalls. Let's look at the dark side of both methods.
Sequential execution definitely has some major blind spots. Because you process things in a strict order, human memory starts playing tricks on us. Primacy and recency biases mean we naturally favor the first and last items we see. Plus, you get task fatigue over time, meaning late-stage results often suffer. And computationally, if Step D is stuck waiting on a super slow Step A, you've got really expensive hardware just sitting there completely idle.
But on the flip side, trying to do everything all at once is a total recipe for cognitive chaos. Simultaneous execution violently fragments our limited attention. In computing, it's what triggers intense resource lockups and complex system deadlocks. And in strategy, moving at the exact same time as your opponent means you're acting with a huge informational handicap. So yeah, multitasking isn't always the superpower we think it is. Sometimes it's really just efficient sabotage. So what does this all mean? We've seen the trade-offs, the cognitive biases, and some pretty high-stakes outcomes. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Which architecture actually wins out? Let's move to and see how this builds into an actionable framework in Section 5, Guidelines for Choosing. Okay, here is your operational cheat sheet. It's all about matching your constraints to the approach. If your tasks are heavily dependent on one another, if your resources are limited, or if you desperately need to adapt to early feedback, you want to go sequential. But if pure speed is literally the only metric that matters, or you need to do direct comparisons like A/B testing, simultaneous is absolutely your weapon of choice. So the crucial point is that in reality, the most elite systems don't actually pick just one. They synthesize. They use hybrid strategies. Imagine a massive industrial pipeline. The macro stages flow sequentially from one to the next to maintain strict quality control, right? But within each of those isolated stages, you have dozens of microtasks executing in parallel. You use sequence for control and simultaneous bursts for velocity. It's the best of both worlds. Our culture kind of worships the cult of multitasking, doesn't it? We try to do everything at once to conquer time. But as we've seen today, whether it's a high-stakes police lineup, a massive AI model, or just your own daily workflow, simultaneous action often sacrifices accuracy and adaptability. So I'll leave you with this. In a world obsessed with doing it all right now, what are we sacrificing by rushing to do everything simultaneously? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the hidden architecture of your decisions, and I'll catch you next time.